Okay, so Joe, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump right into it.
Hmm.
Oh, what's your background? I mean, I know you're from Southampton, but were you born there?
Yeah.
Did you go to school there?
Yeah, so I'm from Southampton, which is basically in the south of the UK. And yeah, I've lived here all my life pretty much. I've never moved house, so I've always been down here. I went to school down here. And I went to college in a place called Winchester, which is not far. It used to be the capital of England, actually, long, long time ago. Winchester, and then after that, I went to university in Leeds, which is in Yorkshire, which is about 250 miles north. So yeah,
And
always been
and what are you studying there?
so I'm doing geography at the moment at Leeds, which isn't just volcanoes and things. It's a bit of a combination of a lot of different things, a bit of economics, sustainability, politics. It's a bit of a mishmash of all those things.
Oh, okay. So I mean, that's th- that's quite an extensive background on studying. Um, okay, so let's move on to the topic of the day, which is one planet, one chance. As
Sure.
you can see in the background, you're representing one planet, one chance. So where did you come up with the idea? Like, what sparked the idea of one planet, one chance? Were you just sitting around one day and then just came to mind, or did you see a problem and then you thought that you could maybe do something about it?
So the environment has always been one of my keen interests, actually. I've had the privilege of growing up with a family that's, they've got me interested in a lot of different things. The environment was one of those things. They used to take me to nature reserves, and really like further my interest in that way from a very young age. So I'm lucky to have those supportive parents, and basically it's just stemmed from that. Really, my interests have just grown through primary school, which, just for the people listening, that's about age sort of 5 to age 11. Um, During that period, when I was about age 9, the school put me forward to be part of a government think tank, a children's government think tank. And what that involved is it was a national think tank. So a few children, about 20 children, got picked from the whole of the UK, from all different areas. I was lucky enough to be one of them, and basically went on lots of different trips around the UK. We saw how things were recycled in the UK, how our waste was dealt with, sort of projects, something called BedZ, which is basically a little town in London that they developed, which is based off zero emissions. And basically, we went around loads of different trips like another one to investigate climate change at the time, which was Labour government. And then I had the privilege of taking this manifesto to the Houses of Parliament, a meeting Ed Miliband there, who was the Secretary of State for the Environment. And that was when I was about 9 years old, and it's really stemmed from that. I was on Blue Peter. I've featured on the TV a few times. I had my a newspaper column for a while as well as I was growing up.
Oh wow, that's wow.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
started off young, and it wasn't just like
yeah.
it didn't just spark one day. It was a process.
No, no, very, very much sort of a gradual process. And yeah, everything's just built from my childhood, really. But in terms of One Planet, One Chance, getting back to why we're here, that was a couple of years ago. So, I was away with some friends, and we were traveling through Europe, and we just noticed, there's obviously you read a lot about it, but there's rivers and beaches that were passing that were just had a lot of rubbish. And plastic pollution is always something that I felt is such a huge problem, especially when it gets into the sea, because once it's there, you can't get it back, really. It's one of those things that we have to nip in the bud now. We can't try and solve it later. And that was, the area that me and my friends really wanted to basically go into and target and tackle.
Because it's a cycle. The rubbish goes into the
Yeah,
ocean and then it comes right back onto our dinner tables and
yes, no,
extremely
exactly,
damaging, especially for kids
exactly.
when they're growing up. They need healthy food.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Um,
so how much have you collected so far? How much litter have you collected so far?
so we got to about 2.5 tons. Um, but obviously that was all stopped about October last year because of the coronavirus regulations in the UK. Obviously, it's been pretty bad here. And so every time there's been a lockdown, we haven't been able to meet. And obviously our sort of thing relies on people meeting together and going to beach cleans and things. So we had to cease our operations, but we're looking to begin them now as the UK comes out of lockdown.
Um, I mean, is it 2.5 tons?
Yeah. So around 2.5 tons. And when you think a lot of that is tiny bits of plastic, you know, stuff like, you know, this pencil, for instance, you think that doesn't weigh much. But 2.5 tons of lots of different little bits like that is pretty amazing when you think about it. And
yeah, it's no small number, man. That's really heavy. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, I came into contact with Joe around last year, March. It was through Zubi's live.
It was.
And then I asked Zubi a question about climate change, and then Joe messaged me later on, and then and then we discussed about environmental issues concerning the world and especially the Western areas, and how it's integrated with politics, and how politics may make it difficult to actually combat climate change. Okay, so anyways, we got in touch, and he helped me establish One Planet, One Chance Fiji. So far we've collected about 250 kilos. That's about just like a tenth of what you guys have done. How seriously do people take environmental issues in the UK?
It's definitely grown a lot. And I think these days, if you spoke to the average person on the streets of Britain, I think everyone admits that we need to do more. You know, humanity needs to do a lot more for the planet. People are unhappy with plastic pollution. If you look at polling or anything like that, climate denial is extremely rare in the UK. Nothing like in America, people have platforms. You know, it's just not mainstream here at all. Everyone's accepted the science in that respect. But, you know, things like plastic pollution, everyone's against that. It's well publicized. It's in our media all the time. It's in the BBC, it's in the newspapers. And it's just growing. People do really recognize that it's an issue. It's just a case of how quick we're doing something about it, if you see what I mean. A lot of people know it's an issue, but in terms of things being done, it's a bit slower.
Because I know in America it's a bit polarized. You have conservatives denying climate change, that climate change exists, or that there's a serious threat to the environment in terms of pollution. I mean, they say they are proponents of science, but when it comes to climate change and environmental issues, they sort of have their ideological cape over that issue. And it's really interesting how politics can affect serious issues such as climate change. You know, people have a tendency to politicize things. I've seen a lot of people criticizing capitalism for climate change, but when you look at it, China is one of the biggest polluters in the world, and they're not a capitalist state. They're like semi, but then they're communist also. So that's an interesting thing. You know, it's the thing about climate change and these environmental issues, and let me know what you think about it, is we shouldn't really politicize it. We should approach it from a scientific perspective. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I really think that, you know, the facts are out there. The facts have been out there for years, to be honest. We're just adding to the same you know, research that's, you know, it's been evident for a long time now. But yeah, no, I always do find it weird, because on a lot of topics, conservatives are very much fact orientated, and it sort of comes to the environment and it seems to change a little bit. And I don't really know, you know, I always go with the facts and the stats and the data. I think it's really important to look at them with an impartial view to begin with, and then build your opinions from that.
Facts over feelings.
Yeah, of course. But that's my thing. You know, I don't understand how they can purport that, but then also not agree with the science when it doesn't suit them. I feel, you know, very much with me is I look at the data first, I look at the facts, I look at the stats, then I form my opinions. Whereas I think with some people, it's a bit uncomfortable, and I get that, because people don't want to give up, some of the lifestyles they've got, which is fair enough. And then, of course, it's for us on the green side to show people that actually, we can still have capitalism, but we can do it sustainably. We can have rising living standards, we can have economic growth, but it needs to be sustainable. And I think, that argument really needs to be made to these people so that we can bring them on side, I think, which, a lot of environmentalists, they attack and they demonize these people. And I really don't think that's the answer to that. I think, as I'm sure if you demonize people, you just get a defensive reaction. They're never going to join your side of the argument, so to speak. And I think it's up to us to create an argument that they find favorable as well.
Yeah,
Which I think is
you need a really unifying message to actually progress in whichever issue you try to tackle. You really need a unifying message. That's probably part of the reason why Joe Biden was elected to be president. I mean, people can say he's a facade unifier, but his message was on unity. I mean, whether you disagree or agree or disagree with his policies, he did say that he wants to unite the left and the right to combat COVID. And I really think we can take a similar approach to climate change.
Definitely. I mean, the thing is, with something like climate change, there's so much that needs to happen that it's just not practical to have such a divisive discussion about it. We need to bring everyone on board. We need to, satisfy people's fears, of some of which are credible. People that have always worked in industries that are naturally carbon intensive, there needs to be a plan for them so that they can transition into a low carbon economy. But I think it's possible, and it has to be done, because if it isn't done, then we can't go forward. We can't make our countries greener if half of the population doesn't want to. We're primarily democratic countries, and it relies on the democratic will of the people. So it's up to us, as I say again, to create a message that they can really get behind as well as us. And that does not come from being divisive. It doesn't come from attacking people for how they live and things like that.
Yeah, and on that note, we were discussing sometime around last year about how One Planet, One Chance events, they don't it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a certain political view to actually join. So you have people from all backgrounds coming in to help and collect rubbish later. It goes to show that that you don't really need to bring in your political views into issues such as climate change, because at the end of the day, it's everyone that will be affected by it. So you need to tackle the problem with everyone. You need to have a unifying.
Yeah, and that's very much our sort of ethos. We don't discriminate against people of different political opinions. We're a big tent in that respect. We're happy. Anyone that wants to make a difference. It doesn't matter if you're left or right wing. If you've always been an environmentalist, if this is a new thing for you and you're concerned about it, you've seen some stuff on the news, you want to get involved. That's what we're here for. We are here to create that opportunity for anyone who wants to do something about it to get involved and be a difference.
Just bringing us back to climate. One Planet, One Chance. So I've seen a few of a few videos of on your Instagram page explaining about One Planet, One Chance. I think it's in the information information highlight. So people usually see littering as, collecting litter as something, as a disciplinary activity. You're punished to collect litter. But one thing I've noticed with One Planet, One Chance, the events, is that it's more like a social event than actually going out and just picking up litter, and it's people actually socialize, and I guess that's a key element uh, of uh, of succeeding in these types of events. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it just goes back to what I said previously about making it appealing for all different types of people, and that's really what we've done. We've turned it into a bit of a social event, because as you say, it has historically been seen as that. Across the world, picking up litter is sort of a low grade thing to do, and we're trying to change the perceptions on that, and people find it rewarding, I think, which is really good. But obviously, as you say, they're getting that social element out of it as well. And during times when we're hearing so much about mental health, I think that's really important for people to go out, meet like-minded people, and do something meaningful. We're not sat at the pub or not doing anything. We're doing something really meaningful, and I think that really helps people as well. But yeah, and outside of the environmental stuff, we socialize as a group. We've got a group chat going. We're always there for each other. We'll go for the odd meal out and things like that. So yeah, there's a whole social element, and that's a big part of encouraging people to join us and really creating an appeal for environmentalism for all people.
Yeah, that's nice. And you mentioned that um, unlike the US, the UK is very much united on the issue of climate change and plastic pollution. Is
Hmm.
that represented in the government, in the parliament?
Yeah, so I'd say the vast majority of people are united in that, especially now. But I'd say you still get certain people in government. Some people want to progress really fast, and you've got we have a Green Party in the UK, and they very much want to hit that sort of 2030 target and plow loads and loads and loads of money into investment. You have Labour as well that they had a Green New Deal as well. But even the Conservatives, they are very environmental. They've got a 10-point plan at every house in the UK to be UK. We have a lot of, as an island, we've got lots and lots of offshore wind that we're beginning to utilize more now. It really is getting built. I think, just in summary, all the parties want to do something to stop climate change, but different parties to differing degrees. But even the Conservatives in the UK, they have a big plan. The rhetoric is very green. It just remains to be seen how much action's put in, and if it is, then fair play to them. They'll be doing a good job. But yeah, they've certainly got lots of plans in terms of making the UK renewable. I spoke about wind energy before, and yeah, lots of different things like that. So fingers crossed. It should, as long as they carry out their policies, we're on a road to carbon neutrality, which would be good.
So I mean, so in your opinion, basically, the Tory or the Conservative approach is probably the most efficient one and least damaging in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's got to be a balance, and as I said before, you've got to appeal to a lot of people, and I think having come out of a massive recession, people don't want to spend loads and loads and loads of money on a massive Green New Deal, and I don't think that would command the majority of the support, which is fair enough. That's understandable. But yeah, the sort of policies that they've got in place, I think if they put them through, it's going to be really good for the country.
Do you think do you think that's a result of politicization? Because I mean, if the Tory government politicized climate change, then obviously they wouldn't try to solve climate change.
Yeah.
You can see that happening in the US. So
Mm.
so I mean, it's really interesting because the Conservatives are taking a non-political approach to climate change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said before, the issue of climate change and environmentalism has definitely grown in the UK. You look at polling now, and it's one of the top issues at election time. The 2019 election, we actually had a debate about climate change and what all the parties were planning to do to basically hit net zero and prevent climate change from happening. So I think it's partially just general, opinions of the populations become very environmental. The Green Party, however, as well, is commanding a lot of support, or it has been commanding a lot of support, particularly in the recent local elections. But in general, the Green Party's grown as a party. I've voted for them before. to send a message to the government. And I think, a vote for the Green Party is telling the government in power that people do want these green policies. Green MPs are not necessarily getting into the government, but their vote share is definitely something that statisticians are analysing. Government ministers are looking at that and thinking, their support's going up, therefore we need to incorporate some green policies. I definitely think there's some of that at play. But yeah, I think it's really good. I hope that they these are not empty promises and they go towards them. I think their target of net zero by 2050 needs to be brought forward a little bit, but compromises have to be made, and I think that basically the push for environmentalism will grow, and I think it will be brought forward eventually. So it's in the right direction, put it that way.
And what are your thoughts on Boris Johnson specifically? Because I mean, a lot of people, they compare him to Trump. They say he's the Trump of UK. But as someone, as an outsider, as a third person, I don't see him as a Trump figure, because I mean, some of his approaches, some of his actions, they aren't. They are slightly progressive, but it has like a conservative shade to it. So what are your thoughts on Boris Johnson and how he specifically tackles these issues such as climate change?
I mean, I think with Boris Johnson, he's obviously a very clever person. In the way that he presents himself, he does so in a way to basically make the ordinary person feel that they've got a bit in common with him, or he'll say things in a funny manner sometimes and be a bit more sort of realistic, which I think I for one don't know why more politicians don't do that, because I think you look at the opposition at the moment, Labour, and Keir Starmer, he's very sort of wooden, a lot of people that can't really connect with him, and he's not a bad guy. I think if he portrayed himself if he was more of a character and had something a bit about him like Boris Johnson has, I think he would get a lot more support. So I think he's very clever in the way that he puts himself across as a politician. But yeah, I think, and his politics as well is very interesting. He's not, as you say, he does have some progressive policies in there for a conservative, but then also he does play to some of the more hardline conservatives. So I think it's difficult. Some people will say that that makes him pragmatic. Other people will say that he's just playing to get as many votes as possible and he doesn't have many principles of his own. I think time will tell. How much he does for the environment and things like that.
But at the end of the day, it's the result that matters, not the intention.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, as a country, the UK's come out of a massive pandemic. We're still going through it now. Massive amounts of money have been spent. Our economy's recovering. And this pretty much hit, not long after he took power properly in 2019 and got his mandate from that election. So he hasn't really had an opportunity to do too much outside of a pandemic situation. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity to get his environmental agenda underway. So I'm waiting to see what that entails really, and to see how much progress we make there. So it's a bit hard to judge him yet, even though he's been in the job, since 2019, because he's had this massive issue to deal with here in the UK. And that has really been front and center since March 2020. So hopefully now he'll get that opportunity, he'll get a few years to really show what he's about. And I'm waiting for that. And I hope that there's going to be lots of environmental objectives hit during that time.
Are you aware of any policies that he's passed regarding the environment?
Yeah. So he's brought forward, there was originally, I think it was him as well, when he first came into power, he put a proposal to ban all combustion cars from all of Britain's roads by 2040, or ban new cars that were combustion, so petrol and diesel, in Britain by 2040. That's been brought forward now to 2030, which I think will be really good, because I think even electric cars that are produced, that run off electricity that's generated by fossil fuels, they produce drastically, fewer emissions. So as well as increasing renewables, even if we've just produced our current electricity, it'd still be a lot better if people driving electric cars. So I think that's a very good proposal in itself. He went against quite a lot of the lobbyists in that, because there was a lot of lobbyists from the automotive sector, the vehicle sector, and they were very against that. So I'm happy he stood firm in that. But yeah, this wind energy proposal is one of his, and he really wants to base the green recovery off a lot of green proposals, and that is encouraging a lot of foreign direct investment into various green industries. So that's like hydrogen and things like that, battery technology as well. He's very focused on, and that's what I mean. That's the type of stuff which I think will command support from conservatives as well as environmentalists. It's showing that we can have that economic growth, but it needs to be in areas that are, low carbon or zero carbon, investing in industries like hydrogen, like battery technology, that's going to enable us and the rest of the world to become net zero. I think that is the way, and I wait to see if that turns out, and I hope it will. So, fingers crossed.
If there's one approach that you could change about, if there's one thing you can change about Boris Johnson's approach to the climate issue, what would it be? Just putting you on the spotlight.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, he's going to announce lots of new proposals at the COP26. I don't know if your listeners know about that, but obviously there's been 26th. This is the 26th conference for the COP, and it's in the UK, and so he wants to unveil lots of new proposals there to wow everyone. And obviously that's where all the countries will be getting together to decide on the new targets and things like that. So that'll be interesting to see what he announces there. But I think for me, renewable energy's got to be a big one, because obviously we need energy to power the economy. People need energy to heat their homes, X, Y, and Z. And I think if we can get that from renewable energy, that would be the best thing that we can do. I think also, one planet, one chance for about plastic pollution. So I think really cutting down on single-use plastics is a massive thing. And economically, I think we can put in several proposals. He's actually putting in a carbon tax. We did have a carbon tax before, but it's not on all industries. It's not like a massive amount of money for industries to pay. The one that he's putting in has increased a little bit, but I would probably go a step further and basically make that greater and make it applicable to all industries, and also have that on all imports as well. So, as the UK has food standards and things like that it checks from other countries, as well as the stuff we produce domestically, I'd like a carbon tax to be put on, and that to be checked internationally as well. And so for people that want to export into the UK, they have to, confirm how much carbon's been produced in their products, and that could be factored into the cost and things like that. Because I think that is really, really how we tackle the climate crisis, and how we get these emissions down, really, is by taxing them. Because at the moment, the reason we produce so many emissions is because it's a negative externality. It's not priced into the market system. It's not priced into the capitalist system. And I think when you put a price on carbon, a lot of industries will change a lot faster than anyone thinks that they will. In most situations, business always finds a way. In other places where it's been trialed, carbon tax has been really, really beneficial. And I think as long as they make them progressive and not regressive, because obviously, basic necessities like food, clothing, X, Y, and Z, poorer people basically spend more of their income on those things. So as long as they recycle the revenues in such a way to make it progressive, I think carbon taxes would be a brilliant option for the UK to really push forward more than they have done. And to really pursue them.
I mean, when people hear about carbon taxes, they scream, socialism or communism, we're doomed. But in reality, when people take a conservative approach to it, it's not really a progressive one, but it's like it's a centrist approach, basically. And capitalism can work, but it needs certain regulations to, stop it
Yes,
from
yeah,
damaging other people's lives
yeah,
overall.
100%. Yeah, and that's why carbon emissions are that negative externality. And when they're not priced into the market isn't going to be influenced by them. It's as simple as that. So we need to put a price on carbon. And I think then, as you say, a lot of people won't be for that. But as I said, in the UK, the polling suggests people really want to do something about it. If we demonstrate that, it's a progressive tax, it's not going to hurt people's pockets. And actually, you can combine it with net investment. And what I mean by that is, this is a topic that I've studied for in my degree at the moment. So this is the reason I know these facts. But in British Columbia, which is a province of Canada, they basically recycle revenues. So if they collect X amount of tax from this carbon tax, they recycle 130 to 170% of those revenues back into the economy. Now, what that means is it's not just taking money and then the government chooses where to invest it. It's taking money from carbon intensive industries, but then the government is adding 70% on top of what they collect and investing it into society. Typically, those are back to the companies that have paid the most in tax so that they can invest in these renewable energies. Obviously, there's conditions. So, for instance, if they pay this money and they get revenue back, the revenue that they get back has to be spent on innovating new solutions so that they become zero carbon, or investing in new infrastructure that is more environmentally friendly. And in the end, the target is for everyone to pay less tax, because this revenue is being recycled back to these the companies that have to pay most tax so that they can innovate new solutions. And it's sort of, I think that's how you make it beneficial to people. You show that they're getting something out of it, which I think has worked in Canada really, really well.
Basically taking more from this side and then reducing general taxes.
Yeah. So it's a difficult concept to grasp. But yeah, basically they are investing more in green infrastructure.
Zero sum, basically.
Yeah, and they're taking from the carbon tax. But yeah, of course you can lower other taxes as well. Lower certain income taxes, VAT, corporation tax, because if a company knows if I produce X less of CO2 and I can pay less tax, that they're going to go for that. And actually, it means that renewable energy, which can become uncompetitive, can be expensive. If I don't have to pay any money for my carbon emissions, as a business, it doesn't make sense for me to pay a load of money to invest in solar panels that may take 50 years to pay off, because I'm not having to pay for that carbon. But if you have to pay for that carbon, all of a sudden it levels the playing field. The solar panels become more financially viable because they end up saving you paying this tax money. Do you see what I mean? It actually incentivizes that innovation, and it incentivizes that investment, so to speak. And it's a great way to use the capitalist system, to use the market system, which I think we're really not utilizing that in this fight for climate change. And I really think it's a powerful weapon that we have in capitalist countries. And I think you have to incentivize people to do that. You have to show them that by investing in green technology, you're going to increase your profit margins. And that's always been the issue. It's this taboo subject for business. They get scared when people talk about environmentalism, because to them they think it means lower profit margins. But if we can influence the market in such a way, it doesn't always have to be like that. And I think that's the biggest incentive. It's the economic impact that people associate with environmentalism that really puts people off and business off. And I think if you really try and tackle that aspect, you'll find we make a lot of progress a lot quicker, because people want to live in a cleaner world. People want to live in a greener world. But then businesses, they're worried about their profit margins. And people could take whatever opinion they want off that. But I think if we make it really economically more appealing to people and business, I think there will be a lot more progression. And I think that's something we're really underutilizing at the moment, in my opinion.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, no, that's really an interesting take, and not a lot of people really consider this, or maybe they don't want to have the discussion of how capitalism can work. Because I mean, if you look at the alternatives, countries that practice socialism, they don't really have a green economy, or I mean, or green environment.
Yeah.
Instead, they end up producing more pollution
Yeah,
than
I
what a
mean,
capitalist system can produce.
bigger government doesn't necessarily mean that government is going to be any more sustainable. Just attributing more power to government, doesn't necessarily lead to better sustainability. And I think as well is you look at a lot of socialist, communist economies, is they're very inefficient because there's not that competition. There's no drive to make, innovative solutions that capitalism can. And I think with climate change, we don't have much time. We really, really need to innovate as a collective, as a planet, really. And capitalism offers us this really good opportunity that if we incentivize people and business to innovate solutions, it's like the COVID vaccines. They've been innovated in such little time. It's amazing. We can amaze ourselves as a species when we really put our mind to it. And I think capitalism does enable us to do that. But as I said, we need to make it economically feasible. We need to improve the economic argument. And I think if you incentivize people under a capitalist system, you'll see lots of innovation, lots of efficiency. And that's precisely what we need. We need to be more efficient. We need to be more sustainable. And yeah, I think that will lead to a lot of progression on this matter. And as you say, I haven't personally seen a socialist or a communist country that's been environmentally friendly. Not to say that they can't, but I don't personally feel that that's the route we have to go down. I don't, and also I think if people associate environmentalism with socialism, I think that's going to put a lot of people off joining us. It goes back to what I said: is you have to respect people's wants and desires. People want rising living standards. People want profit margins. People want wages. These things, high wages. These things are not going to go away. And when people come to vote, that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about themselves as individuals, their families, providing for their families, and that's fair enough. So I think it's in a way it's dangerous to associate environmentalism with socialism and communism. These things that have proved very, very unpopular. In the UK in 2019, the election between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party was challenging the Tory Party in that election. They were a lot more left wing than previous Labour parties, and they suffered their worst defeat since I think 1935. So people generally, in the UK anyway, reject socialism. I think it is dangerous to make people think the two are aligned, or environmentalists are trying to get socialism in through the back door, or things like that. I think it doesn't have to be that way.
And yeah, no, I totally agree. But apart from trying to solve this issue even through capitalism, uh, I really think, and let me know what you think, I really think we need to take a step back and first act as individuals. So if every individual limited the amount of litter or pollution that they produce, collectively that can have a great impact or a reduction in these problems.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And
I mean,
that's one of the key messages of One Planet, One Chance too.
Yeah.
Individualism, take individual responsibility, get your hands dirty.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. We need regulation. I've just been talking about carbon taxes, which is a government regulation. I'm not against that. But yeah, I think fundamentally it has to come from us as people. And in democratic countries, we have to show that will for the government to put these things into practice. They're not going to put things into practice that people don't want to do. It has to come from us. It has to come from us as citizens. And as you say, yeah, with One Planet Chance, we very much created that organization to give people the opportunity to take responsibility and to encourage other people to take responsibility, not to, just share something on social media or have a go at someone for buying meat or something like that. It's about you deciding, I'm going to be the difference. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to come down. Maybe I have an hour spare here. Maybe I have 2 hours. Maybe I have a whole afternoon. Doesn't matter. We're there to provide that opportunity for anyone to come down and decide, as an individual, I'm going to make a change. And it really, I think it really does depend on that. We can't just rely on government. Government's been slow in many instances. even a capitalist government, there's still a lot of inefficiency there in their investment and bureaucracy. And so I think sometimes it really is dependent on local communities, small communities, taking things into their own hands, going out, planting trees in their communities, cleaning it up, making sure there's beach cleans, and not just waiting for councils or local authorities to come around once a month, once a year and do their cleans. It's very much down to people to decide that they want to be the difference. And also in a capitalist system, it's really down to the people, because a capitalist system is very much catering to our demands. If there's no demand for a certain product, no one's going to create it. This is the beauty of capitalism. We as consumers have more power than we think that we do. And we need to create the demand for sustainable industries. We need to create the demand for sustainable products. I hear a lot of people complain about capitalism, but if you keep buying this single-use plastic, it's going to keep getting made. You have to buy things loose. You have to buy sustainable goods if you really do care about it. And yeah, under a capitalist system, this is the reason why, I think, people complain a lot, but I think there's a lot to it, is that we actually have a lot of power as individuals, and we need to create the demand for sustainable goods.
Yeah, no, totally. It basically sums up to Jordan Peterson's message, clean your room
Yeah,
before you go out criticizing the world.
very much, very much. And just a quick point on that as well. Going back to what I can continually go on about is making this argument appealing to other people is, there's no incentive for someone that's not had the education about environmentalism, maybe is a climate denier, maybe works in a carbon intensive industry, struggling to feed their family, their concerns are elsewhere. They are never, ever, ever going to join your side of the argument if you are attacking them, if you're just sharing posts online, sharing videos, and not showing them that actually you are willing to get your hands dirty, you're willing to do something. And that's the big sort of argument against environmentalists from, particularly the working classes, is that actually you're riding around the world in your private jets to all these conferences. Why should I change? And it is true, I'm a massive environmentalist, but you have to admit you cannot be hypocritical in this side of politics, because you're just not going to get that support. You cannot afford to not practice what you preach, because people will not take you seriously. And we really do need
John Kerry.
Yeah, precisely. We really need to practice what we preach if we want to encourage other people to the argument. It's not for us to attack them and say, you're wrong, you're uneducated, because people have different lifestyles, people have different jobs, people have different life situations. It's up to us to create the argument that's appealing for them to join, and that really much is based on us actually showing them how it's done, us practicing what we preach. So there isn't that criticism of the environmental movement, which has existed, for decades, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is elementary. You need to be an example before you actually preach. You need to have you need to be inviting in a way. You can't constantly demonize other people. You have to show them that you embody what you preach, and that if you join me, we can create change for the better. And that's one particular thing that's missing in our youth these days. They tend to blame millennials or no, millennials tend to blame boomers and older generations, and maybe the older generations are at fault, but eventually we will be in charge of the country's economy, the country's political structure. It is up to us to actually create change on an individual level.
And there has to be some compromise. I've seen people come with this argument they've been attacked for greenwashing things or being fake environmentalists, but the thing is we have to appeal to the general population. We have to get them on board. We can't do it without them. We can't do it without big business. I hate to say it, but they do hold a lot of influence. We've got to do it with them. We've got to bring them on board. We've got to create an argument that's really, really appealing to these groups of people. And that does come with an element of compromise. And if you do go around attacking rich people, attacking, people that aren't necessarily environmental, they're not going to join your cause. You very much have to create that argument that's worth joining and that appeals to them as well, which I think is possible. If we make it more economically appealing, which I think it can, if we create the right fiscal instruments, like carbon taxes to incentivize different things and subsidies, and sort of guide the economy in the right way, and then practice what we preach and really utilize the individual in making the difference with, and obviously that stems from education as well, creating individuals that really want to be the change that they want to see. But yeah, I think it is possible for sure, and we have to get these people on board. We can't just attack them.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on, you mentioned that the general message is, don't demonize the other side, be an example. So I'll give you an example. So before establishing One Planet, One Chance Fiji, I had a family member who used to burn rubbish, and it's not going to be a good look on me if I'm running One Planet, One Chance while I have a family member that's burning rubbish. So the worst approach would be to tell them, you're an idiot. You shouldn't be doing that. You're damaging the environment. The frustration is justified, but the approach is wrong, and it'll not end up in a good place. You won't actually create change. So I took the approach of, explaining alternatives to burning rubbish. Maybe you can take that rubbish and tie it up in a garbage bag for the council to collect. And at first they denied it. They were like, burning rubbish is much more easier. It's I don't want to tie up the garbage bag and put it on the road. But it's a process of convincing someone isn't an instant thing. It's a process. You have to go step by step. You first have to explain to them the benefits of actually not burning rubbish, and then you provide them with alternatives. You provide them with solutions, because I mean that's a big thing that's missing in the environmental movement, is providing good enough solutions. The criticism is on point sometimes, it's on point, but they fail to provide viable solutions. And so after a long time of trying to convince this person, I actually succeeded, and that person puts the rubbish for the council to collect. And again, that's just down to the individual level. If we actually practice that as a collective, eventually I think it'll do more good than harm.
No, for sure. And I'm not saying that we should appease people or appease bad businesses. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying we should turn a blind eye to things like oil spills. These are horrible things that need to be called out. But what I am saying is we do need to make the argument more appealing to people that are not on our side and business, because you have to unite everyone together. And we've seen the dangers of having such a divisive society, with various riots and things like that. And I think it's not conducive. And as I said before, if we really want to make change, we've got to have everyone on board. We've got to bring everyone forward, or at least the vast majority. Obviously I accept you're not going to change everyone's mind, but we need to make it appealing to the vast majority. And that's really important in democratic nations. But yeah, as you say, that is the primary thing. I mean, the thing is, the ironic thing is that a lot of people on the left wing of politics in the UK, they criticised one of our ex-prime ministers called Margaret Thatcher. So she changed our economy. She liberalised a lot of the markets. We transitioned into a form of economics called neoliberalism. Our country became dominated by the services sector, and London became like a hub for financial services. Our economy basically revolved around that. We used to have a lot more manufacture, but obviously a lot of that has been outsourced. And she came, and a lot of people were angry about that. I have family from up north, and they were negatively impacted by that. All the manufacturing, the coal mines, a lot of them got shut as we entered this process of deindustrialization. But people that were for her were saying, well, the coal mines, the manufacturing isn't making us any money. It's cheaper to do it elsewhere. We need to invest in financial services and the service sector and have that as our main export. And that's what happened. But my similarity with that is, well, again, this is sort of our next phase of that. We are trying to persuade people to change the economy again, make a capitalist, sustainable economy. But that is going to come with job losses, just as Thatcherism came with job losses to the manufacturing sector. She had an idea, she wanted to change the economy, but yes, there was people from my family that were negatively impacted by that. And this is what I'm saying. There's going to be jobs in carbon intensive industries that are going to be negatively impacted by a sustainable capitalist economy. We've got to create education for those people to retrain. We've got to say that there's going to be jobs on offer for them. We've got to create lots of jobs, and we've got to make sure the economy is really strong. And that's what I'm trying to say. We need to make this argument appealing to the people that are going to be affected by it at the end of the day, and show them that actually this isn't going to hurt your income, this isn't going to hurt your livelihood, this isn't going to hurt your job, and it's not going to have long-term impacts on certain regions that are dependent on carbon intensive industries. And that was the big thing, because this massive change of economy basically it ended up leaving a north-south divide in the UK, because the north had the majority of the manufacturing and the south didn't. And so the south was well set up for this new economy and the north wasn't so much. And that's just what happened. So we need to make sure that those people that are going to be negatively affected, they've got jobs, they are assured that the economy is going in the right direction, and there's still going to be increasing living standards, and no region that was dependent on carbon intensive economy is negatively affected long term.
Yeah, no. So okay, let's bring us back to One Planet, One Chance. What's the future of One Planet, One Chance? I mean, because it's a non-government organization, and it's a non-profitable organization too. So where do you think it's heading, or it's going to end up?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, as I said before, we are hoping to start all our operations back up in the next couple of weeks. A lot of our volunteers are university students, and they're coming back to Southampton from their university cities. So we're going to have a lot of volunteers ready to go. So first off, I obviously want us to get back to what we were doing, have those events twice a week. There's certain areas of Southampton that I've already checked out that I really want to target, an area called Chesil Bay, which definitely needs to clean. So get those back up and running, get it back to where we were, and then look to grow. So in two different ways. One way, I would want my group that I've set up here in Southampton to start doing different activities. So tree planting, conservation work as well, putting up bird boxes, things like that. Because I think all of these things are intertwined. We're called One Planet, One Chance. So we want to, really branch out a little bit. But also, like what happened with me and you, is I really want to set up some other One Planet, One Chances internationally, and nationally. So up north, or in Wales or Scotland or wherever, and abroad as well. So I think, what's happened between me and you, it's been really successful, and I'd love to sort of have that as an area of growth. This has shown me that it can be done. It's not difficult. And, we keep in contact a lot, and it's really, really positive for me and my volunteers to see that we've inspired another group, the other side of the world. And obviously we've known each other better from it. I'd love to have those international connections. So very much that type of growth. So growth in sort of how many activities we're doing, aside from just beach cleaning, which will definitely continue. It's our main focus, but also to grow internationally, to have more volunteer groups up and running. And yeah, I think that's where we're heading at the moment.
Yeah, no, that sounds really amazing, and I look forward to that in the next 10 years, or next year, even next year.
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, no, big credit to yourself, because I'm amazed that someone on the other side of the world, we've been talking, and you're practicing what you preach. You're clearly very interested in it, and that's a massive credit to you. I'm very impressed. You've done a really good job so far. So that's really really impressive, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. uh, I forgot to ask, are you vegan?
So if I'm moving towards that way. So I've been vegetarian myself since year 3, which is about age 7, and that was on my personal intuition. So only my mum is vegetarian. My dad and my brother aren't. But at age 7 or whatever, when I was doing all this environmental stuff, it suddenly occurred to me that I don't really like meat, and also I care a lot about animals. So I decided that it wasn't for me. So I've been vegetarian for a long time. And I now have made several decisions in the past sort of 2-3 years now. I don't drink any milk. I have vegan butter. I rarely have cheese. I rarely have eggs. Those are the only 2 things I have, very rarely. So I'm effectively, I just need to cut those 2 things out, and I probably will do that
What
soon.
about fish and chips?
Oh, fish and chips. Yeah, well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have that the odd time.
So sorry to
But
put you on the spotlight.
yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. Occasional times my family will get in fish and chips, an old British favourite, and obviously I haven't been saying no to that, but I do want to completely stop eating fish, which I will do very soon. It's only because I've been living at home, and so I've been eating what my mum cooks for me and things like that, or buys in. So when I'm moving out, I won't be eating fish anymore.
Yeah, I mean, overall we've covered quite a lot, from politics
Yeah.
to the economy,
Mm.
and one planet, one chance, which is what you're representing
Yeah.
now. And this was really a really good discussion. I think it'll
Yeah.
do good for people who really want to get into the environmental movement. They can maybe see that there is an approach that is sustainable, that is least damaging to
Yeah.
the economy and to the population, the general population. um yeah, so I mean, Joe, this was really good, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you for coming on.
No, anytime. I'd love to do it again sometime. And a podcast is something I'm looking to do myself. So it's been really enjoyable.
Oh,
And really
when
good.
are you setting up your podcast?
Well, I'm hoping this summer. So after I've got these sort of exams and my dissertation out of the way, definitely something I'm looking into. So you'll be able to give me some tips on that and sort of microphones and things like that, because I don't have much of an idea at the moment. But it's definitely something I'd love to get into. And obviously I'm looking to get into politics eventually. So with that sort of discourse and speaking and things like that. And I think the way that things are with technology and where the economy is moving, I think content creators, that is going to be such a big thing. And I think if you can show that you can do that, and create content and create entertainment and things like that, I think that's a really good thing for the future.
Yeah, I mean, due to COVID especially, we've had a much harsher push towards uh, digitalization. We can't operate without the internet now, and I mean, people always tend to look at the negative sides of the internet, but it can actually do more good than bad. Just like
I mean,
what's
I wouldn't have known you without the internet, would I? So
yeah, exactly.
but yeah,
I mean, here's the story. Like the day that Zuby went on his live, um, that I followed him the day before that, like literally just the
oh,
day
okay,
before that.
yeah,
And then the next day I woke up at around I think it was 7 a.m.
yeah.
and I was just really sleepy, but then I saw his live, and then I just wanted to see what the guy was about, because I heard of his the deadlift thing, the transgender. He
Yeah.
identified as a woman while breaking the deadlift record.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted to see what this guy was about, and and I um and I joined his live, and I was wondering what to ask him. So I mean, the question of environmentalism and conservatism was one that, always bothered me, how it is in the US. So I ended up asking him, and then, it is just chance. I didn't even think that he would accept my request.
Yeah.
And luckily you were watching the live too. So
Yeah, I was in Southampton, where Zuby's from as well. Yeah.
if I never went on his live, like if I never clicked on his live, like none
Yeah.
of this would be happening.
No, I know it's crazy how these things happen. I mean, maybe it's just fate, but yeah, it's crazy when you think about all these different things that we've done since, and it's obviously come to a lot of good, and here we are today. Well, a year. It must be a year later. It must be a year now.
Yeah, it's about a year and a half, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was quite a journey.
Yeah.
I've held about three One Planet One Chance Fiji events. But the thing is, I mean, just like you guys, we have a serious COVID outbreak. We actually have the Indian variant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's okay now. So
yeah.
it's not.
I mean, people who are vaccinated also in India, I heard that it's really affecting them. Like it's
All right.
bad. It's like a much stronger version of COVID.
Yeah. Well, we've done really well with the vaccines so far, and yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. I mean, there's still people that are not vaccinated getting COVID here, so you need 2 doses. So, I mean, I'm hoping that, because obviously, in the UK, for the people that are listening, 21st of June was set out during the lockdown as the date where all regulations would cease on absolutely everything. And so, we're going through stages. So 17th of May was the last stage. And
Clubs opened up also, right?
yes, yeah, the pubs opened up. I think it was 16th of April outside, but 17th of May they opened up indoors. But yeah, 21st of June, that's meant to be the big one, and the Indian variant might have pushed that back, unfortunately. So a lot of people in the UK really watching the news every day and hoping that it's still all right for the 21st of June.
Yeah, man, that's great news. No, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. Which
Yeah,
vaccine did you take, by the way? Is it the AstraZeneca
yeah,
or Pfizer?
so I took the AstraZeneca myself. I've had 1 dose, so I'm still waiting for the second.
I took AstraZeneca also. Really had some serious side effects.
I was
Yeah,
they say the first dose makes you quite ill, the second dose is fine, and in Pfizer I think it's the first dose you don't feel it, and then the second dose it makes you ill. But yeah, no, it was the same for me, very much so.
okay. I mean, that's great to hear that you guys will be going back to normal.
Yeah,
And it's high time. It's been about a year since we've actually had any type of normalcy. Hopefully things in Fiji get better, because like the cases are rising by the day. Uh, we have 4
yeah,
deaths. It doesn't seem that serious, but we're a small community. We have a small population, so
it is a terrible situation. It's affected a lot of people, but hopefully now as the vaccines come out and lots of different countries get their vaccines, things will start moving towards normality. But yeah, no, the same is true for Fiji. I really do, because obviously I'm hoping to visit as well at some point soon. So hopefully it'll be all right for then.
yeah, I look forward to it, man.
Yeah, no, it'd be
uh,
really good.
yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, this was a really good discussion, and I'm glad to have had you on the show. Sorry, my dogs are
Yeah,
barking in the background. Not sure if you can hear that.
no, it's all right. It's all
Yeah.
right.
Okay, Joe. I mean, yeah. Would you like to say something before we
Yeah, I
sum it
mean,
up?
yeah. My last sort of thing to say to everyone listening is, um, you know, don't ever think for a second that what you do, doesn't impact anything on the global stage with climate change or with environmentalism. As I've said before, it really does rest on individuals taking things into their own hands, not just waiting for governments, not just sharing things on Facebook and, you know, voting and think you've done enough. Really go out there, really take responsibility, do something with your friends, you know, doesn't matter what it is, but just as an individual, believe in yourself, because individuals really are, they can be the change that we want to see, and they have to be our thing. And the individual level is the basis for everything on top of that, going up to governments and then international bodies. So, you know, my message to anyone listening is really be the change you want to see, practice what you preach, and try and create an appealing argument to everyone around you for environmentalism. Really listen to them, don't demonize them. And together, you know, we really need that united body of individuals, on an international level. You know, if me and you have done it, I'm sure other people can do it. Internationally, we need to unite as individuals, and we can stop climate change. We can defeat this, but we have to do it together.
Yeah, I'm glad that we ended on a strong message.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Joe. So this was the first episode. You're our first guest on the Philotical
Really?
Podcast. Yeah, I've planned a few more around next week with a few more people, but basically you're the first one. So
Thank you.
all right.
Yeah, see you later. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.